The disease that will define your last decades is probably already being written right now, while you feel completely fine. Atherosclerosis, metabolic dysfunction, the slow loss of muscle. These processes start in your 20s and 30s and run silently for 20 to 40 years. By the time you feel a symptom, much of the trajectory is already set. That sounds grim, but it is actually the most hopeful fact in modern health science. Because if the slow drivers of chronic disease begin while you are healthy, then the years while you are healthy are exactly the window where prevention works best. This is the longevity and performance case, drawn from the work of Peter Attia, Rhonda Patrick, Andy Galpin, and Inigo Millan. Peter Attia describes most of conventional medicine as medicine 2.0. It waits for disease to show up, then treats it. That model is brilliant in a crisis, a heart attack, an infection, a broken bone. But it is almost helpless against the conditions that kill most of us slowly. Attia calls the big four the four horsemen: atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, and metabolic dysfunction like type 2 diabetes and its precursors. These are not random misfortunes that strike in old age. They are long, quiet processes that begin decades earlier, when you still feel invincible. Here is the distinction that changes everything: lifespan versus healthspan. Lifespan is how long you live. Healthspan is how long you live with full function, strong, mobile, and mentally sharp. Prevention is not about adding gray, frail years on the end. It is about arriving in your later decades still able to carry your own groceries, climb your own stairs, and think clearly. Take atherosclerosis, the furring of the arteries behind most heart attacks and strokes. It is driven in large part by a particle called ApoB, which carries cholesterol into your artery walls. The key nuance is that the risk is cumulative. It is not just how high your levels are, but how high, for how long. Lower for longer is better. That is an educational point about biology, not a treatment promise. So acting while you are healthy is not premature. It is the only moment when the most powerful lever, time, is still on your side. You cannot reverse 40 years of silent accumulation in a panic at 55, but you can shape the slope of that curve starting today. If you could measure only one number to predict how long and how well you will live, the strongest candidate is your cardiorespiratory fitness, your VO2 max. This is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can take in and use during hard effort. It is, in plain terms, the size of your engine. In 2018, Mansager and colleagues published a study in JAMA Network Open of roughly 122,000 patients who did treadmill testing. Higher measured fitness tracked with markedly lower all-cause mortality. It was a graded dose response, more fitness, lower risk, with no observed upper limit of benefit in their data. Sit with the scale of this. The gap in mortality risk between the least fit and the most fit was on the order of, or larger than, classic risk factors like smoking, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Put bluntly, in this observational data, being unfit was associated with very high risk. These are associations, not guarantees, but they are striking. And the best part, VO2 max is trainable at almost any age. It declines by roughly 1% per year from your 30s and 40s, and the decline accelerates later. But consistent training pushes that curve back up. You can effectively buy yourself functional years, the difference between independence and dependence in your 80s. Now an honest caveat, because precision matters. VO2 max is modality dependent. The number you score running is usually higher than what you score on a bike or a rower, because running recruits more muscle mass. Your VO2 max is not one single figure carved in stone. It varies with how you test it. That matters when you read your smartwatch. Wearable VO2 max estimates and the training zones they suggest are useful trend indicators, but they carry real error. They are estimating from heart rate and pace, not measuring the oxygen you actually consume. Use them to watch your own direction over months, not to compare your exact number against a friend's. For a real measurement, you need gas analysis, a system that captures the air you breathe out. This used to mean a hospital lab and a face mask wired to a cart. Today, portable analyzers like the VO2 Master and the SpiroFit bring lab-grade testing to a gym or a track, so you can get an actual number and retest it over time. So how do you actually build that engine? The foundation is something deceptively gentle, championed by physiologist Inigo and Millan, Zone 2. This is low-intensity, conversational effort. You should be able to hold a full sentence without gasping. It feels almost too easy, and that is the point. At this easy intensity, you are training your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells. Zone 2 work increases their density and improves your ability to burn fat for fuel. That is the engine of your aerobic base and of metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is the ability to switch cleanly between burning fat and burning carbohydrate as needed. It is a marker of metabolic health, and impaired mitochondrial function is one of the earliest threads linking a sedentary life to chronic disease. Millan uses lactate, measured from a drop of blood, as a signal to find the right intensity, not just as a byproduct of fatigue. Then, on top of that aerobic base, you add a small dose of hard work to lift the ceiling. 1 VO2 max interval session per week is enough for most people. A classic format is 4x4. 4 minutes near your maximum sustainable effort, 4 minutes easy recovery, repeated 4 times. This is where the top end of your engine grows. But cardio is only half the longevity equation. The other half is strength, and here Andy Galpin and the research on muscle are blunt. Muscle is longevity currency. Consider grip strength, a simple proxy for whole-body strength that you can measure with a cheap handheld device. In the PURE study, published by Liang and colleagues in The Lancet in 2015, with around 140,000 adults, each 5-kilogram drop in grip strength was associated with roughly 16% higher all-cause mortality risk. A hand dynamometer was quietly predicting how long people would live. Muscle is not just for lifting. It is a metabolic organ that stores glucose, helping keep your blood sugar in check. It supports your balance and your bones, and it guards against the frailty that, more than almost anything, drives the loss of independence in later life. Strength is physiologic resilience, a reserve you draw on when life gets hard. To build and keep that muscle, the recipe is simple and well-supported. Resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, working the major movements hard and consistently. You do not need to be a bodybuilder. You need to lift with intent and to keep showing up for years. Feed that training with protein. For active adults, a commonly discussed target is around 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, spread across your meals. Protein is the raw material your body uses to preserve muscle as you age, and that becomes harder, not easier, with each passing decade. There is one more principle that ties this together: hormesis, a theme in Rhonda Patrick's work. Your body adapts and grows more resilient in response to the right dose of stress. Exercise is the classic example. The stress of a hard session is the signal that tells your body to come back stronger. Heat may be another lever. In observational data, Laukkanen and colleagues, in 2018, reported that more frequent sauna use was associated with lower cardiovascular and all-cause mortality. It is observational, so we cannot call it cause and effect, but it fits the broader pattern that the right doses of stress can build resilience. Around all of this sit the simple, measurable fundamentals. Your omega-3 status, captured by the omega-3 index, a blood marker you can actually track. Micronutrient sufficiency. And above all, sleep, 7 to 9 hours, the most underrated recovery and brain health lever there is. No supplement outperforms consistent, sufficient sleep. Now the punchline, the answer to the person who says I feel fine, why bother now? The disease processes are silent and cumulative. The reserve, your VO2 max, your muscle, your metabolic health, is built slowly and lost slowly. You cannot cram it later. There is no last-minute version of 20 years of training. There is a line worth keeping. You do not rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. The marginal decade at the very end of your life, whether it is lived strong and clear or frail and dependent, is decided by the level you build now in the healthy years. So here is the practical foundation in one breath. Build an aerobic base with Zone 2 work 3 to 4 times a week. Add 1 VO2 max interval session, like 4x4. Strength train 2 to 3 times a week. Eat enough protein. Sleep 7 to 9 hours. And track a few honest markers over time. Notice what that list is not. It is not extreme, Not exotic, not a product. It is the unglamorous, repeatable basics, done consistently for years. That is the entire secret, and it is available to you starting with your next session. The window where prevention is most powerful is open right now, while you are still healthy. The reserve you build today is exactly what protects your future self. If you want to map where you stand, measure your real VO2 max and your strength, and turn it into a plan, that is what we do at longevity-performance.de. Start before you need to.